All right, so we're live. I'm gonna ramble for a minute. Let people see the live stuff come up. See that we get a couple people before I start doing too much talking. Um, Anyone that's ever seen me or heard me in any different space that I've been in where I've been allowed to talk knows I can keep things going for a really long time if I want to. So that's not too hard. And that's not because I'm just a loudmouth. It's because I really do like talking about tech and I like talking about stuff and helping people and things like that. So I have a lot of fun in doing those kinds of things. Um, but yeah, it's time today. Hang on here. Like I said, I want to see a couple of joins start to come up here. Oh, there we go. We're finally getting people joining in. All right. Didn't take too long. That's good. So, like I said, I want to see a couple of people join at least. But yeah, that's we're gonna have our talk today and hopefully have some fun. I'm planning on having some fun at least. You guys are gonna get a chance to see me um, code. I'm gonna say code because it's gonna be HTML code live. There we go, Bob. And now you get to see you get to see your comments. At least until we do a screen share. Once we do a screen share, I'm going to have to let that go because I want people to be able to see. But at least for now, we'll do that while I'm doing the talking portion here. Um, so yeah, this is HTML the beginning, and I called it the beginning because quite literally, it's going to be a talk about the beginnings of the web, beginnings of HTML, where we were as developers back in the early days of web development. Um, like I said, I'll ramble a bit here. So I remember when I was still just started college, yeah, which is early 2000 actually. No, sorry, 96. Yeah, 96. Um, I remember talking to a lady who was a software developer. The truth is, I was dating her daughter, and she happened to talk to me, and she's like, "Oh, she was a software developer. She's like, being a software developer is hard. You don't want to be a software developer. Blah blah blah, all this stuff." Um, and her main reason is, and it's still pretty true, was that software developers are the first to get let go, and it's kind of true. Where we're usually the most expensive resource, so when a company has to cut something, we're usually the first to be cut. But it is the way it is. Anyways, I'll move on. I'm not sure this thing. It's right up here. You can't see it, but it's right up here. Is correct on how many people are actually viewing. It doesn't always update, but at least I've got some people coming in, so we'll assume that there's going to be more, or there are more showing up. Anyways, so HTML the beginning. I'm going to go through something that I have gone through in a previous stream, but I don't think many people were watching my streams back then, so I think it would be good to reiterate this, and especially when talking about the beginnings of HTML. And this is going to be, by the way, this is going to be a series. Like I said, this was going to be a master series that I was going to actually pre-record, edit, and do all the niceties of. But I've kind of gone down a bit different path. But I still want to do the whole series. So basically, this will be the first in a series of HTML live streams teaching about HTML, showcasing the capabilities. So I always feel to start with those things, any of those things, a good place to start is going through the history of that particular technology and talking about it so that people can understand where we were, what we came through and where we are right now, and potentially, if it's the case, where we might be going. Um, so with that in mind, where where did HTML get its start? Where did the internet in general start? You have to remember the internet probably came around in the very early 90s when people first started getting involved. I mean, the internet was around for a lot longer. The first, if you think about the first actual computer computer to computer transmission, which would technically be considered the internet. I believe that was somewhere in the 60s. But and then in the 80s, big corporations had their own what eventually became known as intranet, where they would communicate, from one side of the country to the other side of the country, and but you had to have very specific software that was written. And so these things didn't have any particular protocol to use. They didn't have any way of communicating with each other. They were written specifically for those systems and written specifically to communicate with one another through socket connections and things like that. So those were still there in the internet, but the beginnings, what we consider the internet, the beginnings were probably in the very early 90s. Like I said, I remember going into a software store and seeing Microsoft Internet Explorer in a package. You actually had to buy it. You had to pay money for Internet Explorer at the time. You had to pay money for a browser. So yeah, I remember those days, and that's kind of where things got started, is down those paths. Very early days, before even that, I remember back the first time I used the internet was at my high school, and that was before HTML even existed. That was back in the days of Gopher. If anyone remembers the Gopher protocol. I never wrote any kind of Gopher markup, but basically Gopher was it was very, very basic information sharing, information type communication. Usually get only. The person would publish the information, and then someone could view it. I don't even know how well search engines were back there, or if there were search engines back there. But yeah, you'd go to a site, and Gopher was really basic: text, links, images, and sound, and that was about it. That's all you really had. But you got to realize, back in those times, that was magic to us. If you think about it, it really was. Because to think about, I am sitting in the middle of the United States, and I might be accessing information from the other side of the world. It's just to think about it just kind of blew your mind at the time. So it was really quite revolutionary, and that's what tech has been the entire time. It's always about pushing the limits and finding the next thing, and growing, and that type of stuff. So it's very interesting. But then after Gopher, see, when I first got involved, the first time I started getting involved in doing any kind of web at all, HTML was already around, and if I remember right, it was HTML. The spec version was 3.2. So very early days of HTML. I was just playing around with stuff. I had an AOL account, and if I remember right, you could actually create your own website. The first couple of things I threw out there were horrible. I mean, they were absolutely horrible. But the idea wasn't to really draw people in. It was just to see if I could do something and play around with it. And that's a lot of how you learn in tech, in my opinion. That's a lot of how you learn in tech, and probably some of the best ways to learn in tech is just, and I say this all the time to people. I said it yesterday. Yeah, that's probably it. You're probably right, Bob. It probably is members.aol.com. That's right. That was it. Yeah. Yeah. And then / your name or something like that. Your handle. So exactly. I was talking to people about this yesterday in the hunt. I got to talk quite a lot yesterday, which was pretty good. But I remember specifically giving advice to one person that you've got to just throw stuff out there, tinker, even if it looks horrible, just throw it out there to get started. And that's what tech is all about. That's what learning is all about, is just trying stuff and getting started. And eventually you'll start to figure things out. You should start to get better because you keep doing it and doing it. And if you truly, love or like what you're doing, or even love what you're doing, then you'll have the passion to keep driving and keep getting better. And so, but that was the beginnings of HTML. Just very basic stuff. It was almost like Gopher, basic links. There was a little bit more layout involved. I remember some of the earlier sites. We were having a conversation here on X just today about .com days and things like that. That was about, if I remember right, 96 to early 2000s. Because I remember when I started programming was November 2000, and that was shortly after the .com bubble burst. I think it burst in the late like 99 or something like that, right before 2000. Just, but I mean, there were sites out there that were doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and they were making all kinds of money. I mean, they were they weren't really making all kinds of money. They were spending all kinds of money. they were there was a lot of of investors even back then investing in these, investing millions of dollars in these ideas. And the thing is, I don't think they ever thought of the next step. So they got users to come to their site and all this, and then they never thought of the next step. And what happens when you're not bringing any money in, when you're not really selling anything, when your site is just about doing whatever, and you're not really selling anything it's going to make any money. So yeah, that's to me, that's why I think the dot-com bubble sort of burst, is no one thought of the next step. So yeah, but those were the early days of the web, and we didn't really have the type of stuff we had today. We did have HTML, we did have HTTP. So those are still the protocols to this very day that we're using, but there's a lot more advancement in those protocols to this day. There's a lot more usability, a lot more things you can do with them. But back in the day, we really did not have those before. And I talked about this before, that websites where you wanted interactivity were a lot more JavaScript heavy. So it came down to very, very heavy JavaScript stuff, and that's where a lot of your interactivity was. Now, like I said, you're going to get to watch me code from scratch, and I'm going to code the way that I used to code. I remember the first website, the first actual public website that I created was for a company I was trying to get consulting work doing. And this is when I was still in college. So this is before 2000. This is somewhere in the late 90s. And I've had a discussion about this one as well, with the whole image rollover, which I will not be doing today. I don't have images prepped or anything like that. What I will probably do is to make it show what it would have looked like, I will use some CSS, but that's more modern day CSS. But just maybe as an example of this is how it used to look, kind of thing. Let's not go into that because it's not really about that, but just kind of showcasing what we used to have to deal with, the kind of limitations we had. And honestly, I think for the limitations we had, people really were quite inventive and created some really amazing sites. You should have seen some of the sites out there. But some of the stuff we're going to showcase today comes from a time that was pre-mobile. There weren't really mobile, there were mobile phones, but the concept of mobile web really didn't exist. That's not entirely true. They did have some mobile. There were some early mobile web, but they were horrible implementations. No one used them. If I remember right, they were very expensive, and they were their own special browser. And don't quote me unless I could be wrong, but I think if you wanted your site to work on that mobile browser, you had to write it specifically for that browser. So it wasn't something like like nowadays where we have a responsive design where things just sort of fall into line, and you can use media queries and those types of things where you can adjust your markup to look better on a mobile, to instead of being horizontally aligned to being vertically aligned, which we've talked about recently. So yeah, but those kind of things didn't really exist, and that's why sites looked the way they did back in that time, and that's why we used elements that we did. And I actually had to look it up today. I was trying to figure out when the div element came into the standards. I knew it was before HTML5, and I was right. It was HTML 4.4.1.6, if I remember it right. So about midway between about almost HTML 4.5. So right about in there is where you started seeing things like divisions. Even then, though, they weren't used like they are now. They were used, if I remember, when I used division tags, which are div tags. They were a lot of times for like pop-up menus. Whenever you would roll over something, you'd have a little pop-up menu. You don't see that kind of thing. It still is there. You'll go to some sites and you'll still see the little pop-up menu, and then they'll pop out and they'll pop out and they'll pop out, and you can. I wrote one back in the day to do that type of stuff too. But nowadays, I think people try to be more minimalist and try to aim at more of a minimalist type site, and I think it's for the better. It works better in mobile. The whole pop out thing doesn't really work well in mobile and all that kind of stuff. But that's where division tags started being used before the concept of mobile came in, before things like Flexbox came in, and it gave us the ability to more easily adjust with things. So what we had to do is we had to use what's known as the table tag. And, tables were the ways that you laid things out, and that's what we're going to show today, or at least try to show today. We'll see how it goes. I'm starting from complete blank, so yeah, it's going to be. I don't know if you want to call it interesting, but at least it's going to be something. It's going to be a showcase of actual, coding on the fly. And I hope, I'll mention that before I get started with the share here. I'm using CodePen today. There are a number, if you guys want to start playing with things, if you have simple things you want to do, using sites like that CodePen, there's JSBin, there's a couple other ones out there too that I've had. JSBin is a little bit more, if you want to like create something a little bit more advanced. CodePen is simple. You've got an HTML page, you've got an HTML, a JavaScript, and a CSS. And so, it allows you to put in frameworks and all of those kinds of things. Yeah, I think so too. I think it's a good choice. It allows you to put in, like preprocessors. I mean, it's got a lot of things you can add into it. So it really does give you a good amount of things to work with. But firing up an IDE, firing up an actual local environment, installing all kinds of stuff just to get things running. What a pain. Let's just go ahead and let's do it there. And this is where you guys should do your trial and run, your trial stuff as well, just to start things out. And then kind of take the idea and grow it from there. And that's what we're going to use today. And that's what we'll probably be using, especially through the rest of this series, because it's all going to be talking about HTML. And the rest of the items that I'll be bringing in will be basics of CSS and JavaScript, which is all we really need. So we aren't going to be doing any really advanced stuff in the HTML talks, but we will still be utilizing the next one. We'll have more CSS, and we'll have because we're going to be discussing a lot of the HTML5 tags, how they're supposed to be used, when they're supposed to be used, what the purpose of using different tags are, and things like that. But for this week, since it's the beginning, we're going to just kind of go with the basics, go with the flow, showcase how things used to be, and so the next one will be where we've grown from there. So that will showcase how things have really changed and really gone different. But I'll kind of do the screen share stuff now. I'm going to hide the chat overlay. Because we're going to do screen share, and I want everyone to be able to see as much as possible here. Let's start the screen share of CodePen. Here we go. And like I said, this is going to be really basic. Right now, it's nothing. That's pretty much it. Let me make sure that it's actually shared properly. Okay, yeah, looks good. Okay, so this is it. Here's our CSS and JavaScript over here. We just kind of I decreased them for now just so you can see as much as possible. I remember the first website I was talking about it for my company. I did have that as a title. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. It had a banner on it, a really basic banner with my company's logo and side nav. And then each side nav link went to a different page, but the format stayed the same. It just loaded into a different page. So let me see. I think this thing has autocomplete. I hope this thing has autocomplete, because if not, we could end up really having to remember a lot of this from scratch, which would not be good. Oh, we may have to. That's going to be bad. Hang on here. What's the way? Okay, it does auto run. Okay, good. So, oh boy, how do we? Yeah, I was hoping it would have some autocomplete for me here. You got to do row. I think it's either table row or it's row. I can't remember. Yeah, I don't think that's right. I'm gonna have to pop over and remember HTML. Table syntax. Here we go. Table syntax. Boy, that's bad. Yeah, that's what we'll use. We'll use MDN. Here we go. Okay. So table. Oh, wow. There's even a caption. Oh, huh. That's probably some new stuff in table. But yeah, here we go. Here's how we do it. Okay. So, but I won't do that. So nowadays it has changed a little. So yeah, nowadays you've got, this probably wasn't there back in the day, but now you can split out the body and the header. We won't have a header because there's really no reason. We're not actually doing any of the header stuff there. But yeah, then we do each row. So our first row will be, it's TR, TH, TD. Yeah, so there we go. Okay. Now it's coming back to me. So you got a table row. I don't care about saving my work. Here we go. Now we'll go TD. Now, there was a tag called call span. And what we'll do is we'll put call span of 2 in here and say this is going to be our header. There we go. Oh, something's displayed finally. Look at that. And it looks so great, doesn't it? It looks absolutely amazing. Now we do TR. We'll do another table row here. And we'll say TD. We'll say width is 25%. This will be menu TD. And then we'll do TD. I'm not sure if we have to define 75%. But that would be basically how we would start. Now, of course, the header needs to look a little bit better. You can then have other items in here. You can have your logo in here. I really don't want to try to bring my logo into here, but here we could do. If I remember right, what would you have to do? Didn't you have to define a table within a table if you wanted to have a secondary? I think you did. I think you had to define a table within a table. No, you were right about TR. You got that right. So let's see if this works. Oh, look at that. Isn't that awesome? I can show what Bob said. Yes, he's right. He's right. TR was the answer. So, yep. And so now we got this. So I think if I remember right, what you had to do is you had to write table within table. So basically you had to create a new table with now here of 100%. Here we'll do this. And then you had to do a TR. Yeah, that would be TR. That'd be TR. Then we go TD width is equal to 25%. And then you would have the logo here. And then you would have and so, yeah, that's what you would have. You'll have to imagine this. I know it's not pretty, but you'll have to imagine this. And then you would have, for the menu here, we will go ahead and do this out once again. This was not uncommon to have just a series of nested tables. Ugh. Just writing this is giving me nightmares, reminding me all that I had to do just to create something so basic. Oop, nope, I'm wrong about that. And menu item 2. And as you can see, it's here. This is where copying and pasting started at. Because it was such a nightmare to try and just replicate such simple things. But as you can see, the idea is there. The idea is there where you have, you had your logo here. You can imagine that was my BSoft logo, if anyone's seen it before. I've posted it on certain places. Your header could be, let's do a little bit better. Welcome to my really awesome site. It'd probably have an actual banner logo and things like that. The menu items would more than likely be items that actually, had something real to them. Uses of a lot of BRs and line breaks and other tags and things like that. But as they go out a little bit more and more, let's see here if I can bring this out easily. Oh, I just didn't want to do it like that. I wanted to do it not minimize, just great. Now I can't get it back to where I want it to. All right, so here we'll just say, like I said, I will put some CSS in here just so you can see what it would have looked like. I wonder if this will do autocomplete for me. No, it will not. I think this is the right one. Background color blue. And then we'll say, I'm pretty sure I'm right on this for the CSS. Since I don't have autocomplete, I'm kind of in the dark here. Oh, here's how we can do it. Yeah, we can do it like this. There we go. Now we can see them both. That's what I wanted to do. So now you can say class is equal to menu item. Oh, it didn't work. Oh, well there it went. Oh man, that is horrible. I think there's a light blue in there. Maybe I'm wrong. Nope. Yeah, see, without having autocomplete, it's horrible. Let's see here. So we'd have to have, I think it's color, white. And then, yeah, I'm right, color black. There we go, like that. And then we can just say, like that. And then you'd have that. Now we don't have the pointer or anything like that, but you get the idea. The idea is there. And that was sort of the, yeah, see, and you see there, now you've got the content. So I know there's a tag for it. Let's see here. How do you align the content top in a table? Of course, it doesn't show it. Not here, at least. So we got to go table syntax. TD align top. I'm not sure that's actually how you did it back in the day. Yeah, there it is. That's what it is. It's v-align top. We're going to see if this still works. If this still works in modern browsers. So we've got the logo, we've got this, we've got our content here. Supposedly there was a tag that was v-align top. Oh my gosh, it actually worked. I can't believe it still works. Oh, it looks horrible, but it yeah, if I had some lorem ipsum text, I'd throw it in here to show it kind of wrapping and things of that nature. But uh, I think you get the idea. But this is what you needed to do stuff, and this is actually a very simple example of what you need to do. I'm not even sure T-body was back then. I think T-body might be new, because at the time I don't think you had a separation of header and body. You had to do it manually. So I think T-body wasn't there. It was just table TRTD, and then embedded tables within tables to make your content lay out the way you wanted to. And that's a lot of what we had to do when we did early designs of content. And then you had v-align top, you could then align your content and things of that nature. So a lot of what we did in early web had less to do with JavaScript, had less to do with CSS, because CSS, yes, it existed back then, but I can guarantee you, in my early sites, I didn't even know how to use CSS when I first started creating sites, first started doing things. Yeah. Yeah, here's a very good point. Bob says, I think it's important to note that we never do it by full memory outside of demos. Very, very good point. Yes. Most if I had my IDE open, it would autocomplete for me. It would do a lot of the stuff for me. So I'm kind of handicapped when it comes to actually having to write this stuff by hand. I can't believe I thought CodePen was one of the ones that had the autocomplete. There are some of them that do have autocomplete, and will complete some of the items for you. Um, so that's normally what would have happened, is it would have auto completed. But the idea here is still the same. Basically, this is what we used to have to do. We used to have to, and trust me, this right here, what you're seeing, is extremely simple compared to some of the stuff. You should have seen some of the tables inside of nested tables type stuff, because it's all you really had. You didn't have Flexbox. You didn't have all the really great CSS properties you have now. You didn't have content sticky. You didn't. I'm trying to remember when absolute positioning became a thing. That'd be a good thing. Actually, it wouldn't be bad to figure that out. Yeah, when did absolute positioning become a thing? Let's see here. When was absolute positioning added to CSS? Let's see here. Of course, I'm not going to find that. It's going to talk about absolute positioning, but it's not actually going to give me the actual time when absolute positioning came into play. But yeah, that's we had to do things like that to do layouts, to do layovers, and to do stuff like that. Because yeah, then you would use JavaScript to actually pop up a little layover or something like that. The basic here of the rollover, like I said, this didn't exist. Hover didn't exist in CSS at the time. It basically you had to. I do think the cursor pointer thing was there. So I do think this actually did exist in CSS, and this was like one of the coolest things. I remember when I learned this, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. There it is. There's the pointer. I could actually make the little hand appear over my link there, and I thought I was the man when I did that. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so awesome. Because before, as you saw, it was just the arrow, and it didn't really make a lot of sense. It didn't look very cool because nothing happened. But now look, it shows that you can actually click on it without using a link, even, because you'd had to click, and then a lot of times you would have to click, and then something would pop up to the side. Like I said, you'd have secondary menus that would pop up to the side. So you had to show them that they were able to click it. So you had to change it. You had to change your cursor to the little hand cursor there. Which, as you can see, is called pointer. And I think it was even called, actually back then, I think it was called something else. I think it might have been called something different, but whatever. But yeah, But you did have that back then, because I remember using that. I remember using that to actually cause my hand item to show up, and to do that kind of stuff. Um, so yeah, as you can see, it was very, very time consuming. I mean, I could probably throw something like this together in a basic React site in a matter of minutes, and something that works a lot better, even something that works a lot better, something that does a lot more than this does. Um, and it doesn't take nearly the kind of time, especially with things like Flexbox and those kinds of things. This kind of stuff really became obsolete. I'm honestly surprised that Table's even still supported in newer browsers, but it is. Um, Bob made mention of something here. Here, we're gonna try this out while we're here. He made mention that this still exists, and I'm absolutely stunned that this still exists. Here, let's go down to here. And this, we've talked about centering things. This is the way you centered stuff back in the day. Oh yeah, look at that. Look at that. My centered content now. Isn't that awesome? and and here, while we're at it, let's throw some really fun stuff in here. Let's let's make it bold. Let's bold our text. And let's not stop there. The fun doesn't stop. Let's not just bold it. Let's italicize it. Heck yes, why not? There we go. Look at that bold, italicized, centered content. We are the masters of the web here. We are the masters of our own universe. So that's the way we had to do things back in the day. And you didn't really, like I said, it was still a lot of text and links, and graphics were there. Graphics were used, like I said, for if you see the menu over there. Like I said, graphics were used for that. Like I said, I remember my first website. I actually created. I don't know how I created that. I must have used some kind of graphics program. I was a terrible graphics person, by the way. But I actually got something where I created something that looked halfway decent, and I was so impressed with myself. I just sliced it up into little pieces, and I made my menu items out of it. And I actually hand wrote the menu items into the image, in case you're wondering, and then hand wrote the transition to the background color changing with the text, and I had to hand do each one of those. And it was, I mean, for the time, I thought I was the man. I mean, people saw. I remember people seeing me put it out there, and like, wow, that's a great site. Of course, if you look at it nowadays, people go, that's terrible, man, that looks horrible. What kind of crap is that? Oh, there was one thing I was going to try to bring up. That's right. I was going to try to bring up something for the basics of HTML. Let me see. I've got Daily Dev. I'm wondering if I saved it in my bookmarks or if I sent it to someone. I think I did save it in my bookmarks, but no. Oh, yeah, here it is. Here I did save it in my bookmarks. Yes, yes, yes. Here, good. I'm glad I still have it. Um, for those of you that want to just throw out basic HTML sites and not have to worry about spending a lot of time with CSS and with all that kind of stuff. There's a CSS. Sometimes you want to call it a library or what, but it's basically a CSS called Matcha, Matcha. Here, I'll actually share. I'll share this tab instead. Here, we're going to switch over. There we go. Let's make sure it's shared. Yep, good. We're there. It's called Matcha CSS, and basically you can take a website that looks similar to how mine looks right now, kind of crappy, and basically it will put some of the basic stylings you see in the web around it, and it even implements dark mode for you. And so all you have to do is just put the CSS tag that it's shown right here. Here it is. Here's the CSS tag. All you have to do is put that CSS tag in your plain and simple HTML page, and it will style it to look like this. So basically what it does is it does a lot of the stylings of the actual tags themselves. So it's styling different tags different ways. And that way you can just throw things in there. It'll implement dark mode for you. And I think the dark mode is implemented based upon the user settings. I don't think it gives you like a little dark mode slider or anything. But if the user has dark mode settings like I do on my Mac, then they'll automatically view your site in dark mode. And it's when I found this, I had to save it because I was like, man, So I mean, here you can turn something really basic and simple into something that looks really quite decent, as long as you're using now this goes down the route, I think, of using more HTML5 type elements and things of that nature. But it can it could really save you a good amount of time. I'm almost wondering if I could do this here. Let me see. I'm not going to switch back to my pen just yet. I want to see if I can do this. I know there's a way you can actually add CSS and things of that nature to your pen. Here we go. Here's this. Here's external style sheets. Here, let's paste one in here. But boom. Save and close. It's horrible. Okay, it didn't help out too well, but that's because I'm using the old school table stuff here. But since I'm using old school table stuff here, let's take this out and see what happens if I take the class name stuff out here. I'll bet you it'll look even worse. I'll bet you I can really make this look bad. Let's see. Okay, it's not so bad. It just doesn't have the rollover capabilities, but it's not so bad, I guess. But yeah, it kind of puts some basic content around it. If we weren't using tables, if we were using like divs and things of that nature, it would probably look a bit better. But honestly, if you think about it, this isn't so bad. Like I said, if we were using regular divs and we were just kind of laying stuff out, it's pretty good. So yeah, Matcha CSS. If anyone wants to know it, you can hit me up on X or somewhere else. Here, I'll just show the link again, just so everyone can see it. There's the if you can read it. I know it's kind of small. That's kind of I wish I could. Let's see here. I know I can make this bigger. Let me see if I can make my browser a bit. Oh, it already is big, but let's make it bigger. Here we go. Boom. So there it is. Yeah. If you got that, matcha.mizu.sh.matcha.css HTTPS. If you can put that in your site, then even the most basic of HTML sites can be made to look a lot better, basically. And yes, yeah, that'd be good. Here, Bob says he's going to try it out on a div site to see how it works, and then let me know how it looks. So yeah, that would be really good. But like I said, I was kind of wondering what would happen, because we are using some pretty old tags here. Like I said, our tables are kind of outmoded. Matter of fact, I think the only place I've even seen them used recently is if you're actually displaying tabular data. Sometimes when someone wants to do something really simple and they don't really need a lot of the, scrolling features. And although you can do scrolling inside of tables, if I remember right, you can actually you can do some of the same kind of tricks that you can do with a scrollable div inside of a table. So you can actually have a scrollable table where you can still have your headers up there, and the table can scroll if you have more data than what you want, than what you can display on a single page. So those capabilities are there, but you don't see table used that much anymore, and you extremely rarely see the actual tags used like that. Even when those tables are used, usually we use CSS to style it and do a little bit more work with it and make things look a little bit better and things like that. But I haven't used a table. This is the first time I've used a table in a long time. I would say probably 10 years or more since I've used a table. And like I said, the last time I used it, it was to display tabular data. But yeah, some interesting things discussed today. Some Matcha CSS. If you guys want to use that, I think it's a really good site. I wonder if I can post it here. Maybe I can. Yeah, I wonder if I can post here. I'll post it to all of you. That's what I'll do. I'll post this link here to everyone, and it should go to all the different streams, so everyone should be able to get this, and then at least you'll have it if you want it. That way you don't have to try to dig around and figure out what I was saying. Let's see here. Boom. And I can't post to some channels, so I don't know who is going to see this and who isn't going to get this. But there, I've posted it to. Let's see here. It went out to Twitch and it went out to YouTube. So if you're on Twitch and YouTube, you should have gotten the link in there. If not, if you're on X, you can always hit me up, and I've got it bookmarked. I've got that site bookmarked mainly for purposes just like this, case I want to throw out something simple. But I think some good things discussed here today. We're definitely going to here. We'll stop sharing now. We're definitely going to be more advanced next time. Next time is going to be talking about HTML5. We'll definitely have some CSS in there, some Flexbox stuff in there, basic design type stuff. Where we are now. So this is HTML at the beginning. I think I'm going to call the next one HTML, and then there were 5, since it's about HTML5. Or I don't know, something about 5. I'll come up with something funnier maybe. It was just something I came up with a couple minutes ago when I was thinking about it. Because it's going to be HTML5 and definitely some more modern CSS and those types of things, because now we're going to be talking about present day HTML and I'm gonna try. I think what I'll do is I'll try going through the different tags, and probably not all of them. I will mention some of them though, some of the more used ones out there. I'll do a little bit of research and just find out which ones are heavily used, which ones aren't. One I will mention, even though I won't go through, is the canvas tag. That probably was in my opinion, that was probably the coolest and most interesting addition to HTML5 was the HTML canvas element. Anyone that's heard me talk anyone that's seen some of my recent posts, I'm actually doing some HTML canvas work right now. So, and it's not like I just learned about it. I've known about it since HTML5 came out. I thought it was amazing even back then. Although back when it first came out, I don't think computers were yet caught up yet. GPUs and things of that nature weren't really the norm. They are pretty much now. And so the sites that were out there, that while interesting and while yes, they were showing 3D, they were kind of limited in how much you could do with them. But those limitations have very quickly started to disappear because of technology catching up, because of GPUs being commonplace. My new Mac here has a 10-core GPU, so it's got just an unreal fast GPU. I mean, you should have seen my last Mac. I was trying to use Blender with it, and it would give a warning whenever I opened up Blender. This may not work, and it did work, but yeah, I'd sit there and I would try to render just a basic square on, a basic 3D square on the screen, and it would take over 4 minutes. So, if you have a computer that doesn't have a GPU and you're trying to do graphics intensive stuff, it's a nightmare. It can really be tough. So that's one of the reasons I went with the new laptop, is because I'm going to be trying to taking on more of these canvas related things and stuff like that. Like I said, I have the side client right now, and that's the reason for learning this, but it's definitely going to be something I'm going to try to be learning about. And I'm hoping before too long, I can start showcasing some of those things. What I'd like to do is I'd like to go 2 streams a week. That's what I'd like to do. A stream about this, because I know this stuff like the back of my hand, and I still do it every day. And then the canvas stuff and the web interactive 3D, because let's be honest, I think that'd be really cool. I mean, it's one of those things you can see instantaneously. You can watch it happening in front of you, and you can see the results almost instantaneously. So really, really cool stuff. Hopefully I get to that point. I probably won't be able to start doing that until I get done with this current client, but this client's going to be a lot of teaching. It's going to learn, and going to help me learn a lot of things. And then I'll be able to start showcasing and maybe, teaching as well out to everyone else. So that's the idea, at least. Yeah, I've rambled on long enough again. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to end this, guys. But I appreciate everyone who showed up. I hope it was at least somewhat entertaining. And like I said, next time, HTML5, definitely some CSS in there, basics of layout and how they work. Yeah, probably Probably a similar example to what we saw today, but just maybe a little bit better, I'm hoping. Hopefully, I can come up with something that's a little bit better. Maybe not CodePen, maybe JSBin, so I can actually jump to different contents, but I'm not quite sure how that would work. I'll try to figure out what I'll do. But yeah, hopefully next time, much nicer looking, and you'll see the simplicity that we have now and how good we have it. 'Cause I think a lot of the younger devs who haven't experienced this type of thing and how hard it was for us back in those times don't really appreciate what we have nowadays. And that's why when you see me support things, like a good example. Here I am. I said I was going to stop, and here I'm going off on a tangent. For example, you'll see me support something like Tailwind, and people are all against it. Oh, Tailwind's semantically wrong, and this and that, and blah blah blah, and all this stuff. And I can understand what they're saying. And yes, 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 you should hand code all of your CSS because CSS was made for that, and this and that, and blah 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 blah. And while I understand those things, and I know what they're saying, and I know that putting CSS in JavaScript is not really necessarily the best, try managing a massive site, an absolutely massive site, that's been in the development for 3 years, and you don't have one CSS file, you don't have two, you have 15, you have 20, you have 50 of them, and you're trying to remember all of your different classes. You can try, and I've seen so many things tried. I've seen people try BEM. Anyone's ever tried that before? I just wanted to. I worked at a site. I wanted to blow my brains out. BEM. It was just so. It was so hard to wrap your head around it, and as a concept. And there's all these things to try to manage the complexities of CSS. And yes, I understand that turning to frameworks isn't always the answer. But in the case of Tailwind, the reason I really like it is because it's less of a framework. It's not like it has its own particular stylings. You apply a class, and that class represents a particular setting for CSS. It's basically like handwriting CSS. Yes, I know you're basically trading off a bloated CSS file for a bloated HTML file, and I understand people say that. There are ways, though, to make it to where you don't have to write those really long classes like that. There are frameworks and there are libraries out there. The one I use is Class Names. I brought that up before, and you can actually then put your classes in there, and you can set different situations for different times when different classes get applied and all of that kind of stuff. So that's why I support these things, because if you look at stuff like this stuff will drive you nuts. It really will. It'll absolutely drive you nuts. So whenever you can take a chance to make something easier for yourself, yeah, maybe it's not the most semantically right thing to do, and maybe that's not where the technology was meant to go, but that's what's great about technology, is that you can make it work the way you need to. And as long as you're not causing problems, then what's really the problem? Yeah, okay, if you're doing your own thing and you want to do CSS, you want to handwrite your CSS, and you can sit there and you can actually 3 years later remember where every single class is and what classes to apply to what, then man, you are much better than I am, because I've got so much that I shove into here. I can't remember that 2 years from now. I haven't touched a class in so this section of classes over here in 2 years. I'm not going to remember that. There's no way I'm going to remember that. So, and of course, I saw an article not that long ago that talked about modules and components, and how you can have component specific things and things like that. And yes, I agree with that too. I don't know. It's all just to me, those type of things are things that people just want to fight about just to fight about. I don't like to fight about it. If you like Tailwind, use Tailwind. If you like standard CSS, use standard CSS. For me, I like using things that make my life easier. That's what it comes down to me, because I do so much. I don't need to waste my time. And so that's how I feel about it. But others feel it differently. I'm sorry. That's my soapbox for the day. So I'm going to go ahead and get off.